22nd of July 2025, having duly notified the Senate through two letters that I would be resuming functions today. As a matter of fact, I'm disappointed on two grounds. One is the number of armed policemen that we met outside, all well kitted with guns, charged at a female senator who is unarmed with her people here, patriotic Nigerians. And the second thing is the fact that the Senate, under the leadership of Akpabio, have decided to become lawbreakers and by denying me entrance into the chambers to resume my duty. There's been some conversations in the media by his own team, trying to twist the narrative that the judge did not order my reinstatement, and I'd like to clarify that. You see, pursuant to Section 318 of the 1999 Constitution, it is very clear that decisions of a court comes in 5 ways. It could be a judicial decree, it could be a sentence, it could be an order, it could be a conviction, and it could be a recommendation. So an order is just one of the 5 decisions that a judge can pronounce over any case, and mine tilts towards a recommendation. Now you would think that a recommendation is a voluntary, that means the Senate has either they comply or they have the right not to comply, but I'd like to clarify that. Again, if you go further to the to section 287 subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution, again, it actually specifies in clear terms that decisions, that's any of these 5 decisions of any of the Nigerian courts, are binding and enforceable on every Nigerian and every authority. So what that means in simple terms, whether they mention that the Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court made an order or made a sentence or made a judicial decree or a recommendation, whatever, however they want to interpret the literal words, interpretation of the words, it is still a decision of a court and it is still binding on the National Assembly. The second issue that I have seen withering around the media is that the Senate appealed the judgment, and I mentioned it. I'm saying it clearly. Hamza, can you please give me? Where's Hamza? Let me have that page, please. Let me have the appeal. Let me show them the appeal. Now, this is the appeal that was initiated last week against Justice Binta Nyako's judgment. It is clear that it is not the National Assembly, neither it is the Senate that appealed the judgment. It's Akpabio himself. Read it. The President of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Akpabio, he is the only appellant. The National Assembly has not appealed that judgment. The Senate has not appealed the judgment. The Committee on Ethics has not, that suspended me wrongly, has not appealed the judgment. As a matter of fact, Senator Akpabio joined the clerk of the National Assembly, the entire Senate, and the chairman Committee on Ethics as joint respondents to the case. That means Akpabio has taken the National Assembly and the Senate and the clerk and the committee to court as well. Do you understand? That must be clarified. So there is no reason whatsoever, contrary to the publications I read yesterday, that I should not resume today because the Senate has appealed my suspension judgment, and that's wrong. The Senate did not.
Your own appealed judgment.
No, what I appealed, there's the contempt, and that is separate. The judgment came in 2 parts. One was to address the contempt, which is based on the satirical letter which I made, or the satirical apology letter which I made on Facebook, which the judge thought it wise in her own stride that amounts to contempt. But I'm saying clearly that does not amount to contempt of her court, because before Justice Binta Nyako was not the matter of sexual harassment or the matter of suspension. And what I will say clearly, hold on, what I will say clearly here is me appealing the contempt does not in any way invalidate the decision of the court that mentions me resuming. And I'll say this again. In as much as the judgment, Justice Binta Nyako's judgment, was the most watery of all the suspension judgments we've had, taking into consideration Senator Aline Dume's and Senator Omar Gege's suspension. But there is one particular portion of her decision which I want us to hinge upon, where she mentioned that section, that me that my suspension is actually excessive, and that it being suspended for 6 months actually will prevent my ability to carry out my constitutional functions as stipulated in Section 63 of the 1990 Constitution. Now, what does Section 63 of the 1999 Constitution means? That every senator in this and every parliamentarian is to attend a sitting not less than 181 days per year to carry out my constituted functions. And what are the constitutional functions of a senator? One, legislative, which I'll do in there. Second is oversight of the executive. And third is representative of my people. So that means what Justice Binta Nyako told the National Assembly is that not only is my judgment excessive, but it will also deprive me of carrying out my constituted duties of which I was elected according to the Nigerian Constitution. That is Section 63. So that means my suspension is illegal. If you look at that, because anything that contravenes the Nigerian Constitution is illegal, and the National Assembly cannot be greater than the Constitution. They're now coming down again based on the appeal. Akpabio himself cannot be greater than the courts, cannot be greater than the Constitution. And I want Nigerians to know that the office of the Senate President, Akpabio himself, does not give me my legitimacy as a senator. '23 election. So me being well, of course see, the most important thing is I am proving to the good people of Kogi Central and Nigerians at large, especially the women who have continuously written to me that they have derived courage in my actions so far. Now, the fact that I've been denied entrance is a statement being made. Our narratives are being shaped, history is being formed and shaped, and policies, again, all of this work together through intentional actions like we have done today. It's on record that the National Assembly under Akpabio has decided to be in contempt of the court's decisions. And it's quite ironic because they are actually lawmakers. So that puts to question how far and how ripe is Nigeria's democracy in this day and age. So, however, if we decide to turn our backs and go home, we are not ignorant of the fact that the National Assembly is most likely going to go into recess tomorrow for 2 months, and they will resume pretty much in the last week of September. And like you rightly said, that means they would have pretty much served the earlier 6 months suspension. I'm saying that because as at now, I'm no more suspended. And there's something very important I would like to say. Even the suspension ab initio was fraudulent because the document that recommended my suspension was not attested to by the senators, the members of the committee. It was just an attendance sheet that was photocopied as their signatures. And if we are to go through that, that means ab initio from the onset, the suspension is wrong because the documents, the recommendation itself was faulty. So that's having mentioned that. Going forward, I'm going to have a meeting with my legal team, and then most likely they'll have to probably proceed to the appellate court to seek interpretations of what has just happened, because we are law-abiding citizens. Everyone here who has accompanied me, you can see no one is unruly, even though some have vehemently decided to express their dissatisfaction with the system. I am a law-abiding citizen, and it is very important I do mention, and Nigerians should know that even though we do have 2 federal government criminal cases against me, they are on criminal defamation simply because I spoke up on the threat to life. And everybody has a right to speak up on their threat to life. And Nigerians should know that I am not facing charges of corruption, I'm not facing charges of embezzlement, I'm not facing charges of drug abuse, and neither am I facing charges of murder. And it's ironic that the people who are actually testifying as witnesses in the 2 federal government cases have cases at EFCC, have files at EFCC on record that they have actually embezzled state funds running into billions. So it's really, let me say this, it's very important I do mention the flip of our judicial system, the flip of how institutions are being utilized to oppress people who are innocent. If this is a country that if Nigeria works, if our institutions are truly independent and strengthened, then there's no reason why some of these fellows who sit there as senators should even be in the Senate in the first place. They should actually be behind bars, and I'm saying that. And I do pray and hope that it is by my actions today and by voices of Nigerians all around, whether in the country or in diaspora, that we speak up and ensure that this injustice that is being meted against me, this persecution meted against me will not stand, so that their daughters will not suffer, so that their wives will not suffer simply because they spoke up against sexual harassment. And I'm sorry I have to mention this, because you see, people have wondered, Natasha, how come there's so much hate? How come you were suspended for 6 months? Just the day after you tendered your petition on sexual harassment, you were suspended. And then there was the fraudulent recall. We all saw how we survived a recall. And then there's been a whole lot of attacks against me, which by the grace of God I've survived. And whenever people ask me, Natasha, why is there so much hate from the Senate President against you? Why is that the institutions have turned against you, even though, by and large, you are pretty much one of the fairest senators or politicians in Nigeria? And I tell them, this is just an iceberg of what I have had to suffer and endure in the Senate under Akpabio's leadership for the last 1 year. Many of you thought that my speech on that floor, when I told him I was not afraid of him, and I did mention, I said, if you make me speak to the media on what I have had to endure in your hands, it would go pretty. And that's to let Nigerians know that that outburst I had on the floor was just a compilation of so many wrongs that Akpabio has meted against me. And I will say this, pretty much it's a shame that we have had so many good Senate presidents. We've had Chuba Akpabio of blessed memory. We've had Senator David Mark. We have had Bukola Saraki. We've even had Ahmed Lawal, who is a senator right now. And I'd say this pretty much is the worst assembly Nigeria has ever had. And I hope we will not have to suffer this anymore, because it tells a lot on the individual. And I've said this before, and I'm saying it again. The Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, runs the Nigerian Senate as if it's the third-term governor of Akwa Ibom. Many senators are afraid. You've all seen what happened. You are not allowed to speak. When you try to speak or air your views on certain issues that are critical, you get shut down if it does not conform with what he wants. So far, I've not been given any official reason. I've only read on the papers yesterday that I should not resume today because the Senate has appealed. And that is why I presented to you that the Senate has not appealed the judgment. It is Akpabio himself. He is abusing power by willing the entire institutions to fight me. It's a personal vendetta that Akpabio is unleashing on me by hiding under the wings of the institutions, and it is wrong. It is totally wrong, because you can't have his own senatorial district deprive the Kogi Central of representation. There is just no reason why these gates should not be open. But by and large, considering the fact that the Senate is vacating tomorrow, whenever they deem it fit to resume, we would resume as well. So what matters most is all the pressures and all the calls of me apologizing for no wrong that I did. I have refused to do that. So if it means staying the entire 6 months for an unjust suspension, which I'm repeating again, has been quashed by the courts, so be it. I have pretty much been busy with my constituents on the brighter side. You've all seen, we've been carrying out a lot of projects in the past few months. And that is true to my nature, because I am a technocrat. I'm a lawyer. I'm an oil and gas expert. My formative year in my career were in the oil and gas industry. So I got into politics because I wanted to create a different mark for other people like me who wants to venture into politics. I also got into politics because I want to intentionally raise the standard of leadership. It's enough for us in Africa to sit down and admire leaders or politicians from other smaller African countries, not talk of the European world and the other Western world. So I hope that with this journey so far, however it goes, people should muster strength from me, and I hope that 2027 we will have more courageous, younger educated, intentional leaders that will be elected into office so that together we can change the narrative of Nigeria. And thank you so much for your love and support.